Hey lads, welcome back. Choose here, This Irish Life. We're still going on episode 10. It's the concluding episode of the most epic adventure in the world. And we're going to go right back in again. We're on part 6 now. We're getting close. We're going to have a quick video here for you. And this video is actually of this area here. It's on top of Carron, which is a mountain in Ireland, and we're going to get back to the moors, but we're going to just drop in and have a little view of the top of one of these mountains. So Airborne is Sléibhte on top of the mountain, Carron, the highest mountain in Ireland. This is a little video I took when I was up there. And if you just look, are all of these all of these mounds, look at the funny shapes. Is there buildings? There's a big cross here. I don't know, do I get the cross in the video? But is there a big cross? Do I get the cross in? I hope I do. I'm not sure. Where's the cross gone? There used to be a gigantic cross there. Anyway, that's odd. But this is Carron, and Carron is over here. And once again, we're wondering, is there a gigantic fort under Carron that was built by the Moorish Normans? And this was the edge. This is the edge. How do you just zoom straight down? Copy address. For someone who's used Google Maps so often, I could definitely do with a couple of tricks that I don't have. Now, we're going to find Carron here. Why didn't I just click on that pin? Of course, that was going to bring me there. There we go. So let's go down to Carron. And it's in Kerry. And all of this area here, you're saying, could it be? And you've got the lakes as well. All these lakes are associated with the devastation of the mountains. You've got these little ones here. Anyway, that's Carron, so that was just on top there. I'm not sure which mountain it is. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but I just thought it was nice to pop that little video in there and just give a bit of realness, a bit of real life. Yeah, so here's the cross on top of it, look. So this is a gigantic cross. So what I'm saying is this actually the cross on top of a giant cathedral? Are you on top of a giant building up here? I know it sounds crazy, but look at what we've been through up to now. And if this is your first video, you really need to go back and check out a lot. But these crosses are common on top of mountains. So I'm wondering, is there a gigantic tech underneath the peak of the mountain? That's the top of the mega well. And once again, this is called the Devil's Ladder. So you walk along here, and it's all masonry everywhere. There's walls everywhere, heavy masonry all over the place. You walk up here, you go over there, and then you go up this. This is the Devil's Ladder, and then up here is the peak, and this is where that cross is, up there. So is there, if you took away all of this dirt and mud, and it's literally just stones, it's just a load of stones have been piled up here, just dropped on top. As you can see here, it's just lots of stuff. Well, obviously that pile is piled up a bit there. It'd be interesting to see if you took all those away. But all around here, it's just all stones. And you can walk along here. But once again, you're saying, right, like, is this even like a pyramid type of structure? Like, what was going on? Like these mountain mega wells, these structures where the gods lived in the mountains oftentimes. Like, what was under them? And once again, this is around the Moorish civilization. Do you know what? It's such a lovely walk. It's so beautiful now with nature in it. Can't imagine what it might have looked like before. It's all paved, like all these rivers. Like this is a canal here. So this is just destruction. There's just boulders all over the place and rocks everywhere. It's just pure carnage, absolute carnage. This is going up the devil's ladder. So this is like essentially going up the side of a building, I'd say, you know, and there's just loads of rocks and rubble and you're climbing. You're just going up and there's rocks everywhere. There's the cross again, top of the mountain, and look at the views. So like if you are in the bracket of the gods and you're up on top of one of these, and this is your star cities, or your star canal cities are down below you. That's pretty epic. So that's Carrantoul. This is a nice photo here, isn't it? So you're wondering, like, under here, what's under here, what's under there, and as well in some of the mountains, and people who are in mountains often probably notice this as well, that you'll find just random walls suddenly just like, and then it's like, is that a wall? Is it not a wall? Is that masonry? Is it not masonry? And then all this, the devastation. I'd be saying that all of these are like crystal blocks, the limestone blocks. These are all limestone. So I'm saying that these, like all of this here, this is paved. These are big blocks along the side of like a mountain river. Just loads of them, gigantic. So, resetting our minds as we go into episode 6, and we're talking about the Moors, and we're talking about the lost civilization, the Crystal Canal star cities, the Starfort mega wells, the miners, and the cataclysm that ended their high-tech world. We left off in the last part. It was a biblical tale, and we were talking about Joseph. And Joseph was a slave in Egypt who was sold into slavery by his brothers, Jacob and Esau. I think, I still haven't checked it. I should have checked that actually beforehand. Anyway, it's all going to come out. It'll probably come out there now. So Jacob held the brother. So Jacob and Esau, they were twins, and they had another brother, Joseph. I'm not sure was it by the same mother. It doesn't really matter. But Joseph was sent off to Egypt and he was a slave for a while, and then he interpreted the Pharaoh's dreams, so the story goes, and then he was given a very prominent position in Egyptian society as second to Pharaoh, the vizier, like the advisor, and they gave him a wife called Asanath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On, and On is also the name of Heliopolis, which was the center of the gods for the Egyptian pantheon of gods. That's where Osiris, Isis, and Horus were hanging out. So Joseph became a big shot. So he was a slave and then he became the ultimate big shot, which is very odd to understand. It doesn't usually happen. So Jacob, unless you are really being useful, I suppose. Jacob later given the name Israel. So Jacob is the name Israel. He is the name of Israel. So James is the name Israel. James and Israel are the same names. And King James, Sheamus. He's regarded as the patriarch of the Israelites and is so important. So is an important figure in Abrahamic religions, such as Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Basically, all the religions of the world, he is a highly important figure. He first appears in the book of Genesis, so he first appears at the very beginning of the story. He's the son of Isaac and Rebekah, the grandson of Abraham. So he's related to Abraham. It's like Manan and MacLear, and Manan and MacLear being the grandfather of some of the, like McCool, McKecht, and McGrana. And they're like, it's like the son, the grandson type of the family lineage He's the second born of Isaac's children, the elder being his twin brother Esau. He just came out after Esau. However, by deceiving Isaac when he was old and blind, Jacob did a shimmy and he was able to usurp the blessing that belonged to Esau as the firstborn son, and he became the leader of their family. Following a severe drought in his homeland, Jacob and his descendants, with the help of his son Joseph, who had since become a confidant of Pharaoh, moved to Egypt, where he died at age 147 and was buried in the cave of Machpelah. So Jacob, they say, tricked his father and then moved to Egypt. But how about Jacob maybe didn't trick his father and moved to Egypt? How about Joseph came back and tricked his father, pretended it was Jacob, and Joseph was already in Egypt? Like, these are just the things I'm thinking of. And Egypt may as well have been Ireland. It was the same flipping place. So this is Jacob Wrestling an Angel by Rembrandt. This is also in that time period. You're talking 1500s again. The stories are just being, the new world is starting, and these pictures are coming out of the old world. You've got an angel here. Is this like T1000 angel? Jacob is said to have 12 sons. So here we go. 12 sons by 4 women, his wives Leah and Rachel, and his concubines Bilhah and Zilpah. So once again, Jacob is a great man for the women. He's got lots of kids, just like the Dagda, just like all of the Irish pantheon of gods. So is Jacob, once again, like you've got Isaac is Elaha, or Isaac is Dalebath, and Jacob is Elaha or the Dagda, or both, or all, if you know what I mean. So we're kind of mapping it back out. And then Jacob is James, so then that makes James the Dagda, if you know what I mean. That type of comparison. But anyway, we're not going to go too deep into it because you'll be here all day with names. But he had all of these sons, and these were the 12 tribes of Israel, which is an extremely famous 12 people and 12 tribes, of which all of the later battles of the Bible were written about. The 12 tribes of Israel. Were the battles of the world the battles of the 12 tribes of Israel? And Joseph was one of the 12 tribes. He was possibly St. Patrick. He was maybe Nemed. He was possibly Noah. Like, there is a link of Noah to Janus as well, the god Janus, the many-faced god. So Joseph and Janus and James, they're very close. I haven't looked into it, but I'm sure there's a connection. There's a lot of work out there on that. But it seems that one of these brothers inherited the destroyed canal civilization. My money at the moment is on Joseph, because he's about the only one that you hear about. Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat, and then he's got all the parallels with St. Patrick, and he's in Egypt, and he's a slave. So, this is the smoking gun for me, old Joseph here. And Jacob then is the dad, so Joseph might be, say, Bress. Maybe like Jacob, maybe the son of Jacob through a slave. Maybe that's what it was, and then the slaves revolt. So maybe Joseph was already a slave. Maybe he was a son of Jacob through a slave. Maybe it's like Eru and the Dagda. But that would mean who was the slave and who wasn't the slave. Were the nature people considered lower than the non-nature people? Was that the divide? Was it the miners versus the remains of the nature goddesses? I don't know. Too much to speculate on, but interesting to consider. So he displayed favoritism among his wives and children. He preferred Rachel and her sons, Joseph and Benjamin, causing tension within the family, which culminated in the sale of Joseph by his 2 brothers into slavery. So you've got a weird kind of a story going on there as well about Jacob, who is James, possibly Jesus, displaying favoritism among his wives. And so this is once again the family, the feud, which seems to have bubbled out of the biblical texts, and the fighting families, the fighting children of Nemed, the children of Noah, it all seems to link back to this this period that maybe there was a big flood and then they rebuilt the canal cities, and then after the canal cities was destroyed when the wells exploded. Maybe that's what it was. So how about we reset the minds there on that one, because I'm a fan of the truth being in the texts but not in plain sight. So how about, and this brings me to another kind of a point that I made in one of the earlier parts, that you had an original world of the golden age of the gods, where it was the Garden of Eden essentially. And then something happened to that world and it was destroyed. And you could equate that to the destruction and the first fall of man, which is told in the Vedas in India. And then, after the world was destroyed in that tale, I'm not going to go into now, check it out. I think it's the Mahabharata is the story of the end of the first world. High tech stuff. So you had the first fall and then the flood. Maybe that was the giants, that was the end of the Titans and all of that period of time. And then you had the flood, and then the land was laid to waste with radiation and it was wrecked. And then the god Indra was tasked with the job of cleaning it up. And Indra was poisoned by the radiation himself, and he went a bit mad, and he ended up having a load of children with his mother. So Indra and his mother had loads of kids, but Indra also had kids with loads of other people as well. So the lineage of Indra would be the lineage of a god lineage. Indra can be equated to Enki in the Anunnaki, possibly Osiris, not Osiris, who was he linked to in Egypt? I can't remember the Egyptian one. I don't know, is it Seth? But he's not the good guy anyway. He's the bad guy. He's the bad rose. And he's gone bad because he's poisoned from the radiation poisoning or the weapons that were used in the first war. So imagine there's two periods. You've got one, like we're talking about these battles that we're talking about here were the battles that were related to the end of the second period. In our terms, we've spoken about this period, and now I'm referring to a period before the Crystal Canal cities. I'm referring to a period that may be even more godlike, but less technological. I think that the Crystal Canal cities and Atlantis was an evolution of a previous civilization that may have even been an evolution of a previous civilization before that as well. But the stories of the Vedas, and I actually wrote a little thing, which I might show there at some stage, about that story, and the book that Lana Cantrell did, and the story of a fall of man from a higher, the greatest story never told, the story of the fall of man from a higher civilization in antiquity. And that story goes through the biology and the historical and the mythological narratives and draws out these various falls. And I place the Crystal Canal cities at just the last fall. It was a crystal technology civilization that got covered in mud. And I think that maybe before they built the Crystal Canal civilization, that I think that maybe there was a chance that there was a great flood before that. And I'm not sure what was going on before the Great Flood. They talk about like the battles of the giants and all of that. It's a whole different tale that is way beyond the scope of this presentation. But it's a different epoch, a different era, like even bigger giants. You know, maybe this is where the original crystal technology originated from. And it was even different then. And then they used it again, but in a nice way. And then it went bad again. So who knows? I don't know where that fits in. But I think that the Bible and the tales of our history are the tales of the end of the Crystal Canal cities and the blowing of all the Starfor mega wells, which caused gigantic mud to be rained down on top of all of the areas. So I really am starting to think that there was a great flood, and that the children of Caesar, so we spoke about Caesar earlier on. So after the flood of Noah, the Ireland was first inhabited by the children of Caesar. and Cessair was the granddaughter of Noah. Let me find this here now, because I think this is a good time to bring this in. So this story here is set before Noah, okay? But we have to ignore when the flood was and when it wasn't, because they can just mix that time frame up. Let me just find this here now. Nemed. Got the children of Nemed. Were they the Nemedians? They were the Nemedians, or the Partholonians. So you've got Nemed and you've got the Partholonians. So going back to pre-flood, no, the Nemedians, Fomorians, they rise up against the Fomorians, attacking their tower of the sea. Most are killed, their descendants become the Pharaoh and the Tuatha. Who are the Caesarians? Who is Caesar then? Who are the Partholonians? Excuse me now. There's a bit of, if you want to pause and read some of these, by all means do. There's some great information here. I'm not going to go into it now. The Delvna, a people of early Ireland, called the Delvna Nuadid, who lived in County Roscommon. So like, once again, it's like Nuada. The characters who share the name of Nuada. So Nuada, I'm thinking, is Jacob again, you know, or a son of Jacob. Or Nuada is Dalebath, Khan of the 100 Battles. He was the maternal. So Nuada was said to be the maternal grandfather of Fionn McCool. So once again, you've got the grandfather. So Abraham, and so we saw earlier there that Abraham is the grandfather of Isaac. So here we've got that Fionn McCool that Nuada is the grandfather of Fionn McCool. So once again, there's more parallels again. He's equated with the Roman god Mars. So Nuada seems to have been Enki for the most part. And I'm wondering about even the Bress, like was Bress the slave? The Partholons, they settled Ireland at some stage. They were the second group to settle Ireland. They arrived on an uninhabited island about 300 years after Noah's flood. They were believed to be responsible introducing these activities. So I would think that the Partholonians are the Caesarians, are the Firbolgs. They're all the same. And after the flood, led by Indra, Enki, the god who was credited with fixing up the civilization, could be Zeus, could be Odin. He was given the world to fix it up, and he fixed it up into this Crystal Canal city civilization. Let's read this. This caught my eye. So the Lower Gala Aaron, an 11th century Christian pseudo-history of Ireland, states that Ireland was settled 6 times. So imagine that it was only settled maybe once since after the flood. With Partholon and his followers forming the second group, the number may have been chosen to match the 6 ages of the world. Okay, so this is interesting too. Like, what age are we in right now? What age was the last age? If you go back into that mythology of India and the Vedas, like I spoke about, they talk about ages of the world as well. So, like, I think that the Crystal City is an age, we're in an age now, and there was an age before the Crystal Canal cities as well. But the Crystal Canal cities were Atlantis, 100%, I'd say. Makes total sense. Because Atlantis was said to have canals all over it, and there was rings of canals. Should probably add a bit in about Atlantis. According to the Lower Gwala, Ireland was uninhabited following the deaths of Cessair and her companions in the flood. So they said, so the original story of Ireland is that Cessair, the daughter of Noah, a giant, I added that, came to Ireland before the flood. And then they died in the flood. And then another group of people came after the flood. And then they created the civilization that we now understand as the Firbolg, the Tuatha, and the Fomorians. Partholon was said to have sailed to Ireland via Sicily and Iberia, arriving 300 years after the flood, landing in Kinmare in County Kerry, which is beside Carrantoul, where we started this episode. And was that his fort, Partholon's fort? So maybe they had their own forts and maybe they had their own battles. Maybe these wells were popping all the time. With Partholon, where his wife Delgnat, so once again Del, the Norman connection, Delacourcy, Del Blath, Dela, the father of the three Fear Bullock. Here I think they might be mixing it up with three Fear Bullock sons. There was five Fear Bullock sons. But you've got Slanga, who's probably looks like Slain, Rudrig, who is another brother, and Laglin, I'm not sure who he is. Partholon and all his women, they died of a plague in a single week on Senmag, the old plain near Tala. So they all died of a plague apparently. So I'm not sure what was going on in these times, but I'm putting the biblical tales as the final wars of Atlantis, the final wars of the Canal civilization. And I don't know how much reference they're really giving to anything before that. So, finishing up on Jacob, we're thinking that they're all the same people. This is Joseph and Asanath. And this is a picture in Berlin. So Joseph, I presume, looking very medieval. And here you've got your old tech pillars that used to be turned on, but this is taken afterwards. So are these the paintings of these characters after the flood? Or not after the flood? We need to be careful here that we get confused. After the wells blew, after the Starfort mega wells were blown, are these the pictures is this what was happening? So this is an Egyptian, and the daughter of an Egyptian priestess here, this is. These ladies aren't looking too happy. But look at the detail on the clothes. Like I'd say this in full resolution, blow your mind kind of stuff. Like, look at the ladies up here. What's she pouring out? She's throwing someone out the window. Like, is that a clone? She was like, get out, T1000. I have enough of you. Do you know, is that what they were killing? Were they killing all the bots? Is that what was dying back in the day? Do you know, during the Inquisition? When they said they were all killing, when they were killing everyone, maybe they were just killing the T1000s and the bots. Maybe that's what was happening, the crystal bots. And this was all pre-flood or pre-mega well blowing. Pre-1600s. This here, I came across this. I'm not really sure. I'm not its legitimacy, but it seems to be old. It said it was old, and it's like Joseph, overseer of Pharaoh's granaries. So I don't know, is this a print or what it is, or where it came from, or is it just like a normal, a recent concoction by somebody, or somebody recently created it? But I thought it was interesting. Here's another one. Joseph interprets Pharaoh's dreams. Is this Joseph here? Now you've also got to consider the female male characteristic of all of these people. Like, they are crossed, and sometimes they're male, sometimes they're female. So that's a further mix up again for us. It makes it even more difficult for us to figure out where we're going. So this is in Egypt in some tomb. Is there a lot of sand around? We can't see. It looks fairly unsanded at the moment. If you ever look at Wise Up channel, actually he goes into some great work about why these could have been all wood. He does some great work on petrification and things turning to stone. I don't know, has he ever considered about crystal? I'm sure he has, because the original theory was about silica and crystal-based civilization. But I think that the crystal-based civilization was man-made crystal-based civilization. You know, it wasn't that there was silica trees. I think nature is nature. I think a tree is a tree. We can't see it in all its glory now because the world we live in is so weird and upside down. But a tree is a tree, and a tree is nature, and a tree is the divine, and a tree is the If you're looking at the duality, a tree is on the side of the good and natural and the flow of nature, whereas masonry and technology is on the side of bad because you're trying to control the flow of everything. You're controlling the current, and you're using the current and focusing it on something very specific. It's not bad in itself, but if you're talking about the duality, one is nature in all, like the tree blossoms and the tree. You just let the tree grow. You let the flowers blossom, and you tend to them and you nurture them, but you don't hack them up, or you don't try to change their course too dramatically. You don't cut into them. Whereas with the crystal civilization, and imagine all of this being this crystalline material as well, you know. I don't know how much notice I take of all of this stuff. They could have put out, like Wise Up actually says that these are all fake. These pictures, that they're all fake. And they could very well be true. I think that these could all have been covered in like a marble thing. They could all have been marble. And they put pictures and they cover it up. They took off the marble facings since 1600. They've had a couple of hundred years to do it. And in the couple of hundred years they've been doing it, they've just been pretending that these wars have been happening. But really, there's been no wars happening probably since this war. Wars are probably against the divine order in this way. Like maybe the wars were like clone wars back in the day, and then they make us want to think that there were, you know, like if we think about all of the Starfort mega wells and the theory of like you've got the two sides fighting each other, and then you've got the invader. So what if the invader is the artificial intelligence? So the artificial intelligence blew all the wells, just like in Terminator 2 Judgment Day, where Skynet blows all the nukes and destroys the world. Well, what about if the same thing happened in the Crystal Civilization, where the AI, the Crystal AI, the number one bot, got smart enough to, first of all, turn the Empire of Ross against each other and cause them to battle and maybe have like clone war battles, and maybe that's what was going on. Maybe there weren't actually men dying. And then once it was all carnage and done and the place was wrecked and they'd created enough nastiness, then they pulled the final plug, and then we see all the wells going, and that's one way that you could get it, if the AI did it. Interesting one to consider. Joseph, son of Jacob and Rachel. So Joseph, I'm equating to Saint Patrick. This is my Joseph, and I'm also equating him to, I'm not equating to anyone else actually at the moment. Joseph is the son of Jacob, so Saint Patrick is the son of, say, Nuada or Elaha, the son, the estranged son, Marduk, the same guy again, the son of the unwanted son, the psycho son, essentially. The son who's a lunatic. Is Joseph that son here? Son of Jacob and Rachel, lived in the land of Canaan, so the land of Cain and Abel, with his 10 half brothers and his one full brother. So he had 10 half brothers and one full brother. Who was his full brother, I wonder? His half brothers, I presume, were Esau and Jacob, and his full brother, we don't know. And he's got one half sister. He was Rachel's firstborn. So Rachel was, oh, wait a minute, was Rachel the slave lady? Now that I think of it, I must look into this in more detail. Well, so I think that Rachel wasn't, it was Hagar. Maybe Hagar. So Rachel, so the story goes that, is it Rachel and Hagar? We're going to have a quick look at this. So we are. It's worth it. Rachel. I think at this stage we need to hop in a little bit off the track as things pop up, because We don't forget about them otherwise. And it's a good time. It's a good time to reflect on the material. You know, because if I'm doing a lot of talking, then there's not a thinking being done, you know. So, what we've got is Hagar is we'll take this we'll take this out and have a look. We'll just snip it off. It's easier this way. Hagar is a biblical person in the book of Genesis. So she's in the book of Genesis. She was an ancient Egyptian servant of Sarah. So the Egyptian, she was a servant of Sarah. So she was a slave who gave her to Abraham to bear her child. So Sarah, in this story, this is the story of Abraham. So I was thinking of the story of, we're in the story of Joseph here, but I'm thinking, are they the mirrored story? Are they the same story? And that Hagar is the slave, and that Sarah is Rebecca, and Sarah is Rachel. No, Jacob and Rachel. So Joseph is the son of Jacob. Yeah, so Jacob and Rachel. So you've got Jacob and Rachel would be Abraham and Sarah. And then Joseph would be the son of the slave woman because he was Rachel's firstborn. So that means Rachel would be the slave woman, Hagar. And he's Jacob's 11th son. So he was late in the day. So I wonder if Joseph is the son of the slave lady who rose to take over the star civilization. He was St. Patrick, was he Bress? And he did it with the help of his mother, who was a goddess. So that would mean his father, so he couldn't have a mother as a goddess, could he? If she was a slave, how would that be possible? I'm trying to draw too many parallels here. So we'll leave that there and we'll move on. Sometimes it can just tie you up in knots, and especially, like, let's remember, like, we're talking about Ireland here at the end of the day, but I'm just paralleling once again. Joseph, son of Jacob, I think is the likes of St. Patrick here. Same guy, slave who came to prominence and basically took over the show. And that's it for Joseph and Jacob. This picture here that pops up from time to time, you might notice this is Nouth on the Boyne Valley, which we've looked at many times. And when I looked at this originally, I didn't see any star, anything in it. But recently now I'm looking at this and I'm just seeing, I know that's a path, but look, they build paths on the old walls. They always do it. And as I look at it, I start to see more and more shapes within it. You know, like if you sharpen some of the points, just sharpen the points is all you need to do. And then you've got canals that run, like there's ditches that run all along here, ditches everywhere. And these are all canals that separate. And this is the River Boyne. Is this? No, this isn't the River Boyne. The Boyne is not that close to now. So that's Nouth in the Boyne Valley, where these stories are based, or some of these stories seem to be based. It looks like we're definitely gonna go with a part. We're having a part 7 anyway, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. 7 part for the 7th age. Do we have 6 ages? And this is the 7th age we're coming into now. The age of technology and no technology, side by side. and no wars, just the illusion of war. Is that where we're at? Is that the world of today? So with that, we're nearly there. It could well be the next. We've got enough for another one episode at least. We're going to bring it together with a quick look at the final part of Irish history, which is the 1700s. And we're going to consider all of the information that we've had about Joseph and James and Jacob and all the names and the parallels and the overlaps with the gods and the biblical characters and the saints. Are they all just the same people over and over again with different perspectives and different stories and different views on it? Are they the people that were destroyed in this canal world? Or maybe they're still around. Who knows? Maybe they're still around. Maybe they've still got like T1000 bodies and they're still knocking around. Who knows? But the final person in Irish history to make a real impact is this guy here, William III. William Henry, also like William Henry, like Sir Henry or King Henry. He was 1650 to 1702. So we're going right up to the 1700s here. So once again, it's like there's war in the end of the 1500s, there's war at the 1500s, there's war in the 1600s, there's war in the 1700s, there's war in the 1800s. But maybe there's no war except for just the 1600s or the 15. There was one war, one big war that ended all the wars, and it ended the Crystal Civilization. And the tales that we're told is always just the retelling of that same story. I don't think there was any wars after. Much anyway, very little. It was more just colonization. So William III, he was the King of England during the Battle of the Boyne, which was a major battle that took place in the Boyne Valley in County Meath, which we have looked at many, many times in the past. We will pull it up now because it's nice to pull it up. Carrantoul, to where the Partholon came to Ireland. My places. It'll just be easier to get there this way. So where were we looking for? Where were we looking for? We were looking for the Battle of the Boyne, weren't we? Let's just go here. And it'll bring us over. No, it won't. So we're just going to have to go there ourselves. So I will zoom out. Way. And that's another thing, actually. Like, who's to say that this isn't actually the way Ireland looks? You know? It's upside down there. Like, who's to say that that's not the way, you know, what's up and what's down? Like, maybe this is the north of Ireland, this is the south. And Spain is up here, you know? And Africa's up there. And Iceland's down here. You know, what is north and south? Look at all these in the sea then. All more mega forts, I'd imagine. These are all star forts. You know, all the buried sun. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. Anyway, I'll switch it around before we get too dizzy. And we will go into the Battle of the Boyne, which is here, this is the spot. So Battle of the Boyne was here. So King William of England, this chap here, Prince of Orange. So he's William of Orange. So the Orange Order, that's a big thing in Northern Ireland between Catholic and Protestants. The Orange Order are a Protestant organisation related to William of Orange and his conquests. So this is apparently after the Flight of the Earls. So the Flight of the Earls, they say, was in 1600s, and they're saying this is 1700s. But I reckon it's the same battle, and this guy was in charge. Like, this is possibly St. Patrick as well here, and possibly this is Oliver Cromwell as well. Like the same kind of a guy. Um, so he was the only child of William II, Prince of Orange, who died a week before his birth, and Mary, Princess of Orange, the daughter of King Charles I of England, Scotland, and Ireland. So Charles and James are also similar in their names, as we saw in the etymology of the name. So Charles could well be James as well. That could be James the First. So the daughter of James the First, and the father was William of Orange. So was this the alliance between the old dynasties? He married his cousin Mary, the 15-year-old daughter of Charles's second brother, a Protestant. William participated in several wars against the powerful Catholic king Louis XVII in France, Louis XVI. So once again, we've got battles in France happening at the same time as battles in Ireland. But it wasn't, they weren't separate. They were the same battle. It was the same war that was happening all over the place at the same time. It was the end of the Canal civilization. It was the final end of it. And it was the end of the Normans, the Romans, the Empire of Ross, the Etruscans, and they became enslaved under William. And he could be like a patsy as well. Who knows, is he even a real guy? But he's been purported, like he's a representation of someone, but I don't know who he really is. Like he could well be like Joseph, St. Patrick. He could be the same guy. So the Glorious Revolution. So once again, the slaves rising up against the powers of the elite, so the old gods and the demigod bloodlines, who were destroyed, and their star civilization was destroyed in the Glorious Revolution. So William invaded England in what became known as the Glorious Revolution. So he invaded England in, is it 1685? And he overthrew James the Seventh, I think. But it's just the same James, it's the same thing of what happened. So we spoke about James being the leader of England who invaded Ireland in the 1600s. And now they're saying that this guy, William, in the 1600s, he overthrew another James in the late 1600s to become the king. And then he invaded Ireland in the 1700s to finish the job that the other James had done in the 1600s. So what I'm thinking is that James was the loser all around. Like basically, James didn't do any invading of Ireland. James was the king of the Normans. Like if there was a top guy, he was in the top guy. And this guy here was the king of the slaves, the king of the invaders, the king of the usurpers. And he was supported by some sort of powerful goddess as well. We could be looking at kind of a Marduk kind of a character here as well. Is he in a T1000 body? Is this his real body? Even the armor. Think about armor now, right? Here we go now. Armor. The armor is always too small for the people. And this is something that's been discussed several times already in different videos. But if you were a crystal, if you were a shapeshifter, if you were a T1000 type of thing, you could just pour yourself into the metal and then you could animate the metal in however way you wish. So I wonder, with these suits of armor that they wore, like, was this almost like it was an extra layer for them to wear that they could shapeshift into. They didn't need to take a form. They were formless in this form. They were the T1000 form. They were the liquid crystal. I'm not going to re-explain the T1000 idea again, but liquid crystal shape-shifting, programmable liquid crystal, which like crystal is computers. So like it's not beyond the realms of possibility. There's a reason it's in sci-fi, and it's probably because it happened already. So he was the guy in the 1700s who had the Battle of the Boyne. But I'm saying the Battle of the Boyne was just another battle that was related to the all of the battles. So the first battle of Moytara, I think that all the battles everywhere in Ireland and England and France, they were all the one battle, and it was the invaders coming in against the invaded. James and the Normans were the invaded. They were fighting each other, and then while they were fighting each other, somebody came in the back door and stole the whole show. That's what I'm thinking. And St. Patrick was the guy. This is this is James. This is a picture of him where he's lighter skinned. Whether these people or not, of course, is up for debate. But look at the detail. Look at this fancy stuff here, you know. Like imagine you're wearing this in this Crystal Star civilization. So that's why all this stuff is so techy, because it was all programmed. Everything was possibly programmed. Like all this here, like tech. Maybe not now, but look here in his cloak, like invisibility. Give yourself an invisibility cloak. You just program it to become invisible. Like this is something that they talk about now already in the world of technology. He's got a sword here. He's got some very fancy pants and some very, very fancy shoes. But like these shoes, they could all be functional. Like all of this, look at this here. Like this could all be weaponry that would just make him a total beast when the crystals are turned on. But when the civilization is turned off, all of it is just dead. It's unanimated, it's metal, it's stones, it's cloth, it's brick, it's stone. But when it's turned on, when the system is running, when they had the whole thing running, it was like electric. The whole thing was going. So that's James the First, that was. So James the First. So that's the same guy as, not him, the dark-skinned James that we had earlier in the other part. So in the next episode, we're going to introduce ourselves a little bit more to William, and we're going to look at, this is him here. So William is the guy, the final face of the Irish conquest. William of Orange, he's the Protestant. He's the guy that is most associated with the final conquest of Ireland. All of the Normans were gone, all of the Earls were gone, the Enales, the Tyrconnells, they had gone, and this guy, William, became King of England, and then he became King of Ireland by winning the Battle of the Boyne. This is his wife here. His wife is Maria Stuart. So once again, we've got Mary, the Virgin Mary. You know, is she the goddess Mary? Like, is she the goddess? Is this the goddess that has been helping the slaves through history? Is this her? And she's just re-uploading herself over and over again into these crystal bodies. I don't know, just speculating, you know, how can a goddess continue to infiltrate the human world afterwards? Well, you could take a T-1000 body. These are the coats of arms. I'm not going to go into them. French. This is the coats of arms of William of Orange, I think. Coat of arms of England, 1694 to 1702. So the coat of arms of England in 1694 had French written on it. Like, does that not speak for itself? The lion and the unicorn. Once again, the lion and the unicorn, coat of arms of Scotland, 1694, 1702. And then you've got this lunatic up at the top. It's another lion. He's got a sword and he's got a fleur-de-lis. He's got a serious crown, some tech, all the tech. Tech everywhere. Turn on the tech, turn on the world, turn on the Crystal Canal cities. This is James II. So this is the James that was overthrown by William. So this guy here was overthrown in the late 1600s by this guy here. And they could very well be the same guy as well, you know. This is Louis in France. Now this is a hilarious, I'm not really sure what's going on here. And there's some very odd photos starting to come out. And I'm wondering, is this really, I'm wondering with all of these photos, I'm wondering, are any of these people really the people that they say that they are? They're doing the fancy hand signs here. Check this out. He's pointing to the ground. He's doing the old George Washington. Like, I just have a feeling that none of these people are the people that they say they are. Maybe this guy might be. I like they could all be one person, but like I think like the Jameses, like Louis of France. So this is a King of France. He was the sworn enemy of William, who we just looked at. William the Third, William of Orange. Look what he's wearing. Look at this. And this all looks very luxurious and warm and kind of modern. And but what is he wearing at all? At all, like, you know? Check out these fancy shoes. Like, I don't know, is this a time after the tech or before the tech? He's got his little his wand here and his crown. And in the background, you've got this gigantic pillar. Obviously, the tech is turned off here. Like it's after the wells have blown. So we're going to continue on and we're going to discuss him there in the next episode. And we're going to discuss the final stages of the end of the last world. And this is another picture of William of Orange here. And he's got a lion at his feet. There's loads of apples and flowers. And what have we got here? We've got an eagle. We've got two eagles on either side of him. And doesn't he look very fair altogether? If you know what I mean. So we're going to pick it up in the next episode. We're going to hit episode... Have we gone to episode 7? How many episodes can we get in part 10? I'm not sure. But we're going to keep going. So I will see you in the next one. And hope you enjoyed this. We are nearly there. We've nearly covered off pretty much everything that we can cover. So that was part 6. Thanks again for listening, and think good thoughts as always. Talk to you in the next one.